Hey everybody! Okay, cool. Water time, break time. All that junk has been taken out my stream. Oh, come on. No. Moderator, what do I do? Like, do I answer it?
We should go for a drink after.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah?
I know, what do you guys think? Like, you got that, guys? No. No.
Abby, you're streaming again?
What's it to you? I'm just gonna make sure he's okay.
That video was a bit creepy, right? Towards the end, it did get a little crazy. We wanted to use that video to grab your attention to the subject we'll talk about today. I'm Stefan Vera, and we'll be talking about participatory culture in YouTube and why that makes it extremely relevant. We're making this video as an assignment for our university class. In our class, we were tasked with reading the book YouTube by Gene Burgess and Joshua Green. Something that caught our eye when reading the book was the sections discussing participatory culture. In this video, we will go more in depth into this concept in hopes to make a wider understanding of this concept available. Participatory culture has become such an integral part of most online media that most people don't even think about it, right? It's really subconscious. But you may ask, what exactly defines participatory culture? Or what even is participatory culture? Participatory culture can be defined in many ways. A quick Google search defines it as an opposing concept to consumer culture. It is a culture in which private individuals, the public, do not act as consumers only, but also as contributors or producers, prosumers. This is a good definition, but the book YouTube offers a different yet similar definition. Using their source, Jenkins, who was cited for this definition, defines participatory culture as something where fans and consumers are invited to actively participate in the creation and circulation of new content. One thing these two definitions have in common is that they both involve a consumer. Or in other words, a person who is not making anything but actively consuming or watching it. In participatory culture, these consumers have power over the content or things produced. Can these definitions apply to YouTube though? They absolutely can, and participatory culture is completely integral to YouTube.
Hi, I'm Simon, and the reason why participatory culture is integral to YouTube is because there's a sort of inevitable trajectory of communities to create media to share amongst each other. The social mode of production can fuel lots of types of creation, and sharing is really what YouTube is about. Participatory culture goes far beyond the digital age, with some examples listed in this video.
Participatory culture describes a world where everyone participates, that where we take media in our own hands, where we have the capacity often to produce media, share media. I trace participatory culture back to the middle of the 19th century when there was a Tory printing press movement and high school age kids were producing publications, hand-laying type down and sending them across a national network. So the Amateur Press Association in the 19th century paved the way for science fiction fandom. In the 20th century for radio, amateur radio and ham radio, down through the zine movements around Riot Girls and punk rock, the indie movement around Seattle and the World Trade Organization, down to the rise of digital media.
But it became so much more with the rise of platforms such as YouTube.
If we think about YouTube, many of the people on YouTube are producing media because there's something they vitally want to share. It might be a skateboarder who did a great stunt and had their friends record it and paste it online. It might be an amateur remix artist who saw a TV show they loved and set it to music. It could be a political commentator or someone doing a video blog to talk about their everyday life. All of that becomes part of what I'm describing as a participatory culture.
Content creators often started out by geeking out over niche subjects such as skateboarding or gaming, but because of the massive web of connections that may develop as a result of YouTube's participatory culture, these content creators could graduate to people making a huge difference in the world and may truly represent the power of democracy. Harry Potter and the Harry Potter Alliance could be a very good example of how YouTube has formed communities or organizations that create far more of an effect on global situations.
We could also point to, for example, the Harry Potter Alliance. And the Harry Potter Alliance is a group that organizes around human rights issues around the world. So Andrew Slack, the 20-something-year-old leader of the group, said when he read Harry Potter, what he saw was a story of a young man who recognized evil in his society. The government was covering up, the mass media of his time was lying about it, but he saw through it, organized his classmates to form Dumbledore's army, and went out and changed the world. And that's his account of the plot of Harry Potter. And he said, well, what if we had a Dumbledore's army in our world? What issues would it tackle? What are the concerns? What would you do? And uses that fantasy of Dumbledore's army to mobilize now 100,000 young people around the world are involved in the Harry Potter Alliance, and they're going out to deal with human rights violations in the third world.
But not all media sharing is considered positive, obviously. Now Amy is going to touch on parasocial situations and the gamer girl trailer at the beginning, which ended up being a creepy representation of media sharing.
For all of these reasons, content creators actually encourage interaction, but unfortunately, sometimes that interaction backfires pretty severely. It backfires because of a phenomenon called parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are basically when a person perceives themselves as having a closer relationship with a public figure than they actually do have. A lot of times, any interaction that these fans can get encourages this belief that the YouTuber knows them, that they're speaking to them. You know, content creators tend to frame themselves as being friendly and being like friends with their audience. They're trying to have a back and forth, but some people take that really seriously and assume that that means that, of course, you know, the content creator knows them. And a lot of times, the content creators don't know that they exist, even though it feels like a real friendship. This sort of a relationship can make fans feel entitled to the attention of their favorite streamer. They think of themselves as their friends, so they feel entitled to their recognition. This can lead to a lot of problems like stalking, harassment, people sending inappropriate messages or pictures to content creators. It's a huge issue. This can also lead to fans having a different sense of who the creator is based on their own personal beliefs. There's this big issue with people treating content creators and even to some degree celebrities as almost fictional characters, shipping them with each other, often to a degree that leads to harassment as well, and just content where anytime these two people are together, the only interaction they get is people screaming about them being in a relationship or how people want them to be in a relationship. These parasocial relationships lead to a lot of fans acting more familiar with content creators than the content creators might be comfortable with. They believe, since they have the ability to interact, to engage, to give feedback, that they should have a say in the content that is made. But that's not how it works.
I hope you found our deep dive into YouTube's user-focused content creation and its close relation to participatory culture as well as parasocial relationships that type of interaction can lead to, interesting at least. Our sources inside and outside Burgess's and Green's analytical book, and just our observations of YouTube, have shown that interaction via this platform provided the means to guide content creators to the material that they should be producing and provide specific individual feedback. YouTube's participatory culture can lead to social connections and collaborations that form organizations, affecting things on a much larger scale. Alternatively, content creators are subject to some degree of vulnerability, and parasocial relationships are a possibility which may lead to some more than uncomfortable situations. Overall, platforms such as YouTube promote participatory culture which allow for democracy to dominate them, even amid regulation from YouTube's content control.